Hi everyone, I'm back to do a state action little lecture for MBE and also the bar exam. Lecture number 1 for constitutional laws on my YouTube channel. Now this is lecture number 2. This consists of state action. We also have power reserved to the states, federal powers, and Congress's powers. Okay, so state action. For an action to violate the Constitution, there must be government involvement with the challenged action. You must write this on your essay. Is there government involvement, yes or no? Now, if they're a private actor, they don't usually qualify, but they can qualify if they're at public functions, such as parks or prisons, even though it's a private, park or they also a private entity. Then if they're doing public functions like the parks and the prisons, then they are considered state action. And if there's heavy involvement of the state actor, an entanglement of some sort, then you would consider state action too, and there is state action, okay? Power reserved to the states, federalism, the federal government and the state government coexist. This is through the 10th Amendment. 10th Amendment provides the powers not delegated to the federal government or prohibited by the Constitution, and those are reserved to the states. So if it's not delegated to the federal government or prohibited by Constitution, then they are reserved to the states. This gives the 10th Amendment their police powers. Therefore, Congress cannot compel a city or state to pass a law. Okay, very important for MBEs. Federal powers, there are 3 branches comprising the federal government: legislative branch, which is Congress, executive branch, president, and judicial branches, which usually considers the courts. Congress's powers are regulate commerce, taxing and spending clause, war powers grant, naturalization and bankruptcy, post-Civil War amendment, necessary and proper clause. Okay, interstate commerce, regulate commerce. This is the first power of Congress. This includes interstate commerce, intrastate commerce, commerce with the foreign nations, and commerce with the Indian tribes. These are very, very, very broad. Very broad, and MBEs are very broad, and it's usually they have the power to do so. Interstate commerce, Congress may regulate activities between states, including the channels such as roads and rivers, instrumentalities, the trucks, the boats, the internet, remember the internet, and wires. Persons and things moving in interstate commerce also, and activities that substantially affect interstate commerce, and a lot of them substantially affect, according to MBE. Intrastate Congress may be regulating activities that are purely local, so they could be intrastate, inside the state, local. Commercial or economic act regulated if rational basis test. There's a rational basis, substantive economic effect on interstate commerce, or there's a substantial commutative economic effect. It means like growing wheat or marijuana. Growing wheat or marijuana are examples of that one. Trying to see here. Yeah, commutative economic effect. Non-commercial or non-economic activity may be regulated if the activity has a direct and substantial effect on interstate commerce, and most of them do. Do lots of MBEs on those and you'll get those. Taxing and spending clause, Congress has the power, the right to tax and spend for the general welfare of the U.S. No coercion with funding. So you can't coerce the funding. This is very broad too. There's lots of MBEs on this. War powers grants Congress the power to declare war and raise and support the armed forces. Naturalization, they also do that. Naturalization is granted to Congress, power to establish uniform laws of naturalization and bankruptcy. Don't see anything on that ever, but I do see the post-Civil War amendments, like the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Congress has the power to enforce these. Okay, equal protection, abolishment of slavery, and also right to vote. Necessary and proper clause grants broad authority to enact laws that shall be necessary and proper to execute any of their enumerated powers. Law only needs to be rationally related, rational basis test here, to the implementation of a constitutionally enumerated power. So that's a necessary and proper clause. Let's go to the judiciary branch. Federal courts to review cases arising under the Constitution or the laws of the USA, between 2 or more states, between citizens of different states, and between a state or its citizens and a foreign country or a foreign citizen. An exception of that is independent and adequate state grounds, and I see tons of MBEs on this independent and adequate state grounds. Okay, so let me get the definition for that, an accurate definition for that. The Supreme Court will not review a case where there are independent and adequate state law grounds for the state's court's decision, even if there's a federal question involved. Okay, so we'll do many MBEs on that so you can understand the actual concept to that. Executive branch, which is the president, execution of laws that are made by Congress. He doesn't make the laws, he executes them. Supervise the executive branch. This includes the federal agencies, and executive order are valid unless they are inconsistent with the congressional statute or some specific provision of the Constitution itself. He can make treaties with foreign nations. with a 2/3 Congress vote. He can speak for the U.S. in foreign policy, negotiate executive agreements with the foreign country also. President continued, he can appoint ambassadors, appoint top-level federal officers subject to Senate approval, issue pardons for federal offenses only, except in impeachment cases, veto a bill passed by Congress. Under the executive power, the president has a qualified right to refuse to disclose confidential information relating to his performance of his duties on that one. And the approach is JSPFLLI. Memorize this with a mnemonic, but the mnemonic I use you probably won't understand, but it's justiciability, state action, power of the states, federal powers, limitation on state powers, limitation on federal powers, and individual rights. So lecture 1 and 2. Lecture 1 is my justiciability. I did state action right now, and I'm working on federal powers for lecture 2 and powers of the state. And this is pretty much the approach to memorize, to write a good essay on this. Anything that applies or is going to be on the board is going to be on this approach here. And I'll see you guys in my next video.